Okay, so I think we're recording now. Okay, so we've just seen that video on World War II in color. It kind of gives us the background as to the beginning of the war. So we saw Hitler, we saw him march into some of the different places, Austria, and he just basically walks right through. Austria, just a nice little tidbit there, is actually where Hitler was born. So when Hitler returns to Austria, it's almost like the native son has returned home. He's brought Germany back into power. He has created this great nation, which is Germany. He has gotten rid of a lot of the economic depression that has happened in Germany faster than any other country. You know, he's gotten rid of it. The States hasn't been able to. Canada has not been able to. The rest of the world has not been able to, but Germany has. Germany is all of a sudden up and running and flush with cash again. So when he starts marching into these other countries, a lot of them are very happy to see him. And we've already watched that video. No, we don't want to watch that again. We're going to move on. Next slide. Okay. So a little background on Germany itself, because we kind of skipped over a little bit of this. You know, end of World War II, the Treaty of Versailles, boom, move on to the Depression in Canada. So what's happening in Germany at this point? First of all, Kaiser Wilhelm, he is the person who was in charge of Germany at the time. He has abdicated the throne right after the end of World War I. So November 9th, 1918, he abdicates the throne. He says, that's it, I'm out of here. And he spends the remaining days of his life in other countries. He is in exile. The German becomes the Weimar Republic, and it becomes an actual democracy. So they had a king, now they are out of that, and they're into democracies, which means election, free election. People are going to be able to vote for whoever they want. One of the people that decides to run for this is Adolf Hitler. There are many other people who are running at the same time. Andrew? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. One of the things that people kept asking me about with the Depression is, why don't they just print more money? And Germany, I said, you know, they actually did that, and it's a great example as to why you don't just print more money. And that's because it leads to something called hyperinflation. There is so much of the actual dollar around that the value of it decreases. Okay, so now it's not worth as much because your dollar is actually based on how much wealth your country really holds. And it's kind of I'm not going to get into the economics of it, but it's based on that type of idea. And if you start printing out more money and more money and more money, the value of it decreases. So one of the big things, Germany gets this hyperinflation going in the 1920s. They've just lost the war. They've lost their coal fields. They've lost their respect. They've lost face with the rest of the world. Now they're in the Depression. We have the 1920s, which is party time, party, party, party. States has that. England has that, but Germany doesn't. With the hyperinflation, consumers found it actually cheaper to burn money than it was to go out and buy firewood. They actually ended up just burning the stacks of cash, and we'll take a look at that in a second. A loaf of bread in 1923 cost 200 marks. By November of that same year, it had gone from 200 to 200 trillion marks. The value of the dollar has decreased drastically. Berlin's cabarets, I'm going to move myself up here so that the people at home can read this. Berlin's cabarets, you know, they just overflow. The cabarets are kind of their jazz clubs, their party hangouts. That's where everybody goes, the young people, because they never know if their money is going to be worth anything the next day. So they're just in a spending mode. They're living it up because they don't see any future. You know, it's that end of the world mentality. Just an example as to the rise of the inflation for the marks. And this is the next section of your page. So 1918, the German market is trading for about 5 marks for an American dollar. By 1923, I'm not even sure what that is. That looks like about a 1 trillion. So $1 in 1918 is equal to the same purchase power as 1 trillion in 1923, just a few years later. This is really causing some issues. So, as I said, before Germany, before the war, it would be about $5 to buy a single dollar. Now it's taking 1 trillion to buy a single dollar. Household income, they would spend about 30% of their income on food and 30% on housing before this inflation happens. But that changes, and now food expenses equal 91% of the average income. If you're spending 91% of your cash coming in on just being able to buy the staples, the necessary food products for your kids, you're not going to have a lot left over for anything. Heating, for clothes, for housing. People are destitute. People are really, really in trouble. So that's when we get into the idea of you get somebody like Hitler standing up there and saying, I've got the answer. I know what we can do. Enough of this wishy-washy stuff that's going on in the Republic right now. You follow me, and I'm going to make Germany great again. I keep going back to that phrase, don't I? I'm going to make Germany great again. And people, they started to listen to him. I'm not even going to get into that at the moment. We don't have time. So, who is Adolf Hitler? Hitler was a World War I soldier. He was somebody who was injured in a gas attack, as I mentioned earlier today. And in 1923, he joins this small group called the Nazis. They are a bunch of thugs. They like to get their points across by using bats. They like to beat people. They're just a bunch of, it would be a street gang. That's the best way to describe it. A street gang as a political party. And he sees these guys and he goes, hey, there's something I can work with these people. And so he and a group of them decide that they are going to follow the great Benito Mussolini. And Benito Mussolini, we'll see that in a video in a few minutes. He takes over Italy by basically staging a coup, staging an uprising. And he tries to do the same thing by kidnapping a Bavarian state government official. It fails spectacularly because he walks in waving guns and saying, okay, this is, a kidnapping. And everybody kind of looks at him and goes, you're nuts, kid. I mean, go away from us. So doesn't go well for him. He gets thrown in jail. But while he's in jail, he's got a lot of free time. And he starts to write this book called Mein Kampf. Mein Kampf, I'm not going to get into too much today because we will be discussing it when we do our section on propaganda next week. But the basic idea behind Mein Kampf is it's his political idea or autobiography, and it is his view of how he can make Germany great again. And it becomes a national bestseller. This is before he's elected. But because of this book, he becomes a public figure. He's known throughout the land. People are starting to read his stuff and say, this guy makes some sense. I kind of like the way that he's talking. And as I said, he was a very charismatic individual at the beginning. People liked him. He wore suits. He wore tuxedos. He was, kissing the babies. He was shaking hands. He was going up to the parties, drinking tea out of the little teacups and, talking with the little old ladies and saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Oh, absolutely. I would love to dance with your daughter, and all this type of stuff. People bought into it. Meanwhile, he's got his SS troops in the background, and they're scheming and they're planning on taking over things. This little band of this little street gang that he's joined in 1923 with the Nazi Party, they're slowly getting more and more and more members. And a lot of these people are young men who are not happy with what's going on in the world. And what happens when a bunch of young men get together and they're not happy? Anybody? Christian is kind of smirking over there. I can see that through the mask. What was that?
They go crazy.
They go crazy, absolutely. And they like to start bar fights. And they like to drink and they like to go out there and carouse. And when they're doing that, they're doing it in the name of superiority. And they like to pick on the weaker people. The weaker people being anybody who is, well, gay, anybody who is Jewish, anybody who is part of the communist parties, because the communists are a little bit more of everybody is equal mentality. And these guys are coming on with a hard line. They're the other side of the political spectrum saying, we are good, we are the best. And they start getting a little bit nasty. Hitler is elected chancellor, which for us, that would be kind of like the prime minister. He's elected chancellor in 1933. He is the head of the party. President Hindenburg, he is kind of like our version of a governor general. He's the president of the country, but he is kind of a figurehead only. But he's got power. He can say who is going to run the country, who is not going to run the country. Hitler's got a minority government, but he's able to connect with the people. So Hindenburg says, we're going to give it to you. We like you. We like what you're doing. And a few months after that, Hitler is in the minority. Another party that's in the minority, but right up there with him, is the Communist Party. Well, the Reichstag, which is the German form of the Houses of Parliament. Wait for the caretakers to go by. The Reichstag is the German House of Parliament. And it mysteriously catches fire just a few weeks after Germany gets this new chancellor named Adolf Hitler. Hitler and his thugs have blamed the communists on this. They say it's all a communist plot. They didn't want Hitler in there. He was elected freely and democratically, and how dare they do this? And Hitler and his second in command, Goering, they run to the Reichstag, the Houses of Parliament. They're seen with, the camera, the news people are there, and it shows the police trying to visibly or forcibly keep them out of the Reichstag. They're going in there to save the precious German documents, to save the precious German ideals. Where are the communists? The communists are back home in bed because they've already set the fire. That's what Hitler's saying. So after that, he says, we can't trust what's going on. I'm just going to move myself around here. And he imposes martial law. And when he imposes martial law, he is in complete control. Well, he's only got an army of 100,000 people, according to the Treaty of Versailles. Who is he going to get to enforce this martial law? Anybody? Yep, Britain? No, I mean, he needs bodies. He needs people to come out there and enforce this martial law. Is he? Well, yeah, he went out and he got his street gang, his street thugs, the SS, and said, come on, boys, we got something to do. Well, now he's got an army which is completely loyal to him running the country. This is when the dictator starts. This is when he completely takes over and he goes from a minority leader to a majority leader because he gets rid of his rivals. If you've got nobody behind you, saying, well, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're in a dictatorship. You're in a majority government. Yep. Yep. Okay. One of the reasons why Hitler is so popular is he is the first leader to say, it's not our fault. They forced us to say that it was our fault, that the Treaty of Versailles made us accept full blame for the First World War. We all know it wasn't the full blame of the Germans. I mean, we've talked about that in class. Why is it that they're getting the full blame? England had less to do with it than Germany did. France didn't have any reason to jump in, but they did. So why is it Germany's getting full blame? Well, Hitler's saying that. And he's coming out saying it's not our fault. As I said, in the 1920s, the economy is in complete shambles because of the Treaty of Versailles. He is able to rebuild it. Talk a little bit about how he does that in a few minutes. But he is rebuilding the economy and he is showing that he knows what he can do. And so people start listening to him. One of the things that he does is he's building the Autobahn. Anybody ever heard of the Autobahn? What is it, Christian?
Highway with no speed limit.
A highway with no speed limit, yes. But at the time, it was just the big highway.
Yes.
So it's kind of like what Roosevelt does a few years later when he puts the young men who are unemployed to work and building the infrastructure. It's kind of like what Bennett does a few years after that with building the highways going up north. and building the roadways, Hitler is the first one to say, we want people to work. We got all these young, strong men. Why not put them to work building the roads? Cars are a great new thing, but we don't have the public transportation access to get from A to B. So he puts young men to work, and because they're working, they're able to spend money. They're able to go out and buy things. Because they're able to go out and buy things, we talked about this in the Depression, more people are able to start to work because they need to, make these supplies, make these things. So people are working. He also builds what's called the people's car. Anybody ever heard of the German people's car? Has anybody ever seen one? Bet you have. Guarantee you have. Ever hear of a punch bug? Volkswagen Beetle? That's the people's car. That is Hitler's creation. He creates this car with the idea that it is going to be the people's car. It is small, it is economical, it is something that if it breaks down, it's easy to just kind of pick up, move to the side of the road, and get somebody to help you fix it later on. And it's after World War II that they start importing it. The soldiers start importing it because it's a cute little car, and they bring it back to America and to Canada, and it becomes the big phenomenon that it becomes. But also in 1935, he introduces mandatory conscription. Again, kind of the same idea. He is putting people to work again. The young men who are jobless, who have nothing to do, who aren't working on the Autobahn or because the Autobahn is close to completion, he's saying, you want something to do? I'll give you something to do. We're going to introduce military service again, and you will have a job. I'm also building up my army at the same point. I'm building up my navy. I'm building up my military in general. But this is how he's doing it. Is he's doing it all under the guise of helping his fellow man. The other thing he does when he gets into power, it's been 15 years. Enough is enough. Treaty of Versailles is a joke. We've all agreed on that. This is his words. So he stops the reparations. Okay, that $30 billion that Germany owes, he gets rid of that. He takes back the Saar coal field. It's been 15 years. France and England and everybody else, as I said, they're looking at what's happened and they said, yeah, maybe. I mean, we've only got another 5 years left. Maybe we were a little overzealous on this. So we'll back off. You guys can have the Saar coal fields. Shortly afterwards, the Saar Republic becomes independent. The Saar Republic decides that we really liked what's going on in Germany, and they become the first of Germany's expanding base. So Saar, again, becomes fully German. Okay. You've probably all heard that Adolf Hitler was nominated as Times Man of the Year. He was 1939 Times Man of the Year. This is before the war actually starts. I mean, Times Man of the Year, it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just saying that he is the most newsworthy person. But Hitler really did get a lot of people on his side very early on. One of them was King. That's William Lyon Mackenzie King, not the British King, although the British crown was very pro Hitler, especially uh, the Duke of Wales, who we all talked, or who the ladies talked about being a fashion influence in the 1920s when they were talking about fashion. This guy was a big fan of Hitler. I'm not going to read everything here, but basically, it's King saying he is a great man, and we think that he is going to do good things for the German people. And King went over in 1937. We saw in that video that Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, goes over in 38. King goes over in 37 first to try to get Hitler to stop the war effort, to try to see, no, we see what's going on, but just hold back. We don't want another war. But King says he's a man of great, deep sincerity and a genuine patriot. He may deliver his people and may deliver the people of Europe. So people are a fan of his until things really get going. But people are also seeing the evil side. People are seeing that he is rolling into Austria and taking it over. He's going into parts of the Rhineland, taking it back. He's going into some of the colonies that the German people have lost, taking it back. That's when we've got what's Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, getting together with the French Prime Minister and Benito Mussolini and coming up with the appeasement. That is a whole separate note that I'll be giving you in a few minutes, or people at home, you've got it on the list here. We'll get into that later. But 1938, that is when the true colors of Germany really come forward. That is what's called Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, November 9th and 10th, 1938. This is when Germany really turns on the Jewish population. It's all under the idea that a 17-year-old German-born Polish Jew who is living in Paris kills a German diplomat, and the German people just go outraged. And the German people, and it's mostly the SS and people of that, or the SA it's got here, the military forces, they go through Germany and they smash absolutely everything they can that is Jewish in nature. They go after the windows of the Jewish-owned stores, the buildings, synagogues, the churches. Everything is smashed. Homes are smashed. And by the end of the 2 days, 30,000 Jewish men are arrested and incarcerated. They have done absolutely nothing but defend their homes, defend their Jewish synagogues, defend what they've got, but they are the ones being arrested. The SA paramilitary forces who have done all this, they go free and clear. Why are these Jewish men arrested? We don't know. Okay, steps to war. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. We've taken a look at the political spectrum. I'm just taking a quick look here just to kind of flip through. So as I said, it's not just Germany who is involved in this. You know, if it was just Germany, we probably would have been able to finish this fight much quicker. But Germany has their allies. They've got other people who are like-minded, who also think that the world belongs to them. And they're three small countries. One is Italy, one is Japan, and the other one is Spain. That's the one I was looking for. Italy and Japan were actually on our side for a good chunk of the First World War. And what got them upset was at the end of the war, they were expecting this big thank you. They were expecting to get land. They were expecting to get a lot more than they got. And so that's one of the reasons why Italy and Japan really got upset at Britain, at the Allies, and they said, yeah, we're better than this. We want more. In 1922, you've got Benito Mussolini. He took care of Italy, turned it into a fascist state. He is the one who coined the term fascismo, and that is the idea of fascism. His idea was he was going to return Italy to the glory of the Roman Empire. He invades Ethiopia in 1935. The League of Nations, they object to it, but they can't really do anything about it. And in 1939, he signs a pact with Hitler saying that we are going to be in this together. Notice that he is 1922. Hitler doesn't come on until the 1930s. He is the first dictator. He is the one who basically Hitler is looking up to and admiring and trying to better. He is trying to say, I like what Mussolini is doing, but I can do it better. In Japan, also, they sided with Britain and France and the US. They were given a few small things, but they weren't very happy with it. They were given basic control of everything, the German colonies in the Orient. But again, a small country, they have no natural resources, so they start looking elsewhere within the world and saying, where can we get more resources? Well, there's lots of resources in Russia and in China. Tiny little Japan, taking a look at big Russia, big China. Well, guess what? They go to war with these guys and they win because they're fierce, they're dedicated, they're loyal to their cause. And so that really starts to make everybody else nervous. Let's see, you got this stuff on your slides, so I'm not going to go through everything here. And then Spain, Franco, he is another dictator who takes over with a nationalist government. He doesn't really join the German or the Italian crusades, but he does, you know, because he's in the middle of a military coup himself where he's trying to take over Spain. He asked for German help and the Italians' help with the weapons. And when they supply the weapons, they're using it as a testing ground. And they're able to say, wow, this tank works. We're going to put it in production. If we tweak this tank a little bit, it's going to work even better. If we do this to our planes, it's going to work even better. And so it becomes their testing grounds for how they're going to build their weapons, the Germans. Okay. I've got here it's I see that people know the oversimplified guys. It is a very quick talk. So this slideshow will be up on D2L so you can watch it a few times. Every time I watch this, I pick up on other things that I go, oh, I didn't realize that, or oh, that's a great point. So when you go home, if you're getting ready for a test, which could be coming up after you come back from the Christmas break on World War II, not saying that it will, but it probably will. This might be a good one to watch over once or twice just to kind of familiarize yourself with the basic ideas. Okay, going to stop the video here for the people at home. You can go on to this and do the video link.